All right, so today we are refreshing a few things and updating a couple things on this Jon Cutter G5800. This is a Chinese saw. It's along the same line as the Husqvarnas or the Farmer Techs. I will say that these saws have been impressive to me for their price range. Now, does that mean that they're the same quality as a Husky or as a steel? Absolutely not. I'm not trying to promote them as being such by any means. And they are definitely harder to get parts for. This Jon Cutter and all the Jon Cutter lines are in the form and look very similar to older Huskies. So the Husqvarna people will recognize some of the attributes of these saws, some of the design aspects of them, but they are not the same quality. So here's a little story about this saw. The one in the back here that you see in this clip is actually the one that I had been running for a while. You can see how dirty it is. The one that I just put in the back is the one that is brand new. Yes, I did buy a brand new saw, and no, I'm probably not even going to use it. So you may be wondering, why in the world would you spend money on a brand new saw if you're not even going to use it? So to start with, these are saws you can buy on Amazon without the bar and chain. I want to say they're around $200 and something, 225, something like that. As of the making of this video, they can change. They used to be cheaper. Now they're not as cheap as they were. I think they were like 185 like a year ago, and now they're 225 or something, or 250, something like that. But the reason I am doing this, just so you understand, is that the saw that I am working on there, the one that's dirtier, that is a custom built chainsaw. I used to be sponsored by some companies, and one of the companies that worked with me was Buxton Work Saws, who builds these ported and polished and hot saws or whatever work saws for people. And he built this one, so it's way more powerful than the stock G5800 that you buy from Amazon. And to be fair, I probably wouldn't be spending the money on a second saw just to rob parts of it off of it if this was a, stock G5800 Jon Cutter. Just to be fair, I want that to be very clear, and I want it to be understood. Now, to me, I really like this saw, the 5800. I love the way it cuts. I love the power it's got. The weight to power ratio is pretty good. The Echo 555 XP, was that right? I think was a custom built saw that I had that got stolen from me. It was definitely lighter weight and had better power to weight ratio than this Jon Cutter does. But this Jon Cutter is pretty significant in its power to weight ratio. And I like having it around for bucking up firewood, doing some of the sculptures I do, and that kind of stuff. And to have the saw built and shipped and everything was like $800 to $1,000. I don't remember what it was, or it would be, I should say, or it may even be more now. I don't know. And with that being the case, I don't want to just discard the saw because of a few parts that I had issues with. So he ported a section of the exhaust, which you will see here in a little bit and I'll talk about, and he put a universal port cover on it. Unfortunately, the way he oriented the port cover was toward the chain brake. And so that's where I was showing that clutch cover and chain brake. In this video clip, you can see that while I'm cleaning off all this debris and stuff from the saw I use regularly, that, there's two clutch covers over on the right-hand side of the video screen. The orange one was an aftermarket replacement that Farmer Tech sells through Amazon and on their own website. And I bought that because the chain brake had been melted in two on the original clutch cover that I had for this saw, which originally came in that gray color, like the one that you see laying on the table, the brand new one. The replacement from Farmer Tech, who sells Jon Cutter and imports those to the U.S., was way cheaper made and way less durable than the clutch cover and chain brake that come on the saw when you buy the saw. Clearly made in two different factories, clearly two different qualities. And while my original clutch cover lasted for like, I don't know, a year and a half of like commercial tree climbing and whatever use, because I used to own my tree service company, the aftermarket one lasted like a month and melted in two. Literally, the chain brake snapped off because it had melted. And a large part of that is because that exhaust port was turned so that it was running this ported and polished saw, all the exhaust, or a good portion of the exhaust, toward the handle on the chain brake. But still, that just shows you the different quality in the aftermarket one that I bought as a replacement part through Farmer Tech, and the one that comes on the saw, which, as you can see there, is that gray one that I just took off the new saw that I got in from Amazon. So keep that in mind if you're looking at buying these saws. The replacement parts are not always equal to the parts that come on the saw from the factory. And that's something very important to consider. If you have not dumped money, or if you haven't fallen in love with the way that a saw runs because it's custom imported and polished or whatever, probably not worth buying a second saw just for the parts. But considering the price difference and the life that this saw still has in it, the ported and polished one, I say it's worth it. And I wanted to keep it running, so I am robbing parts off of it. So this saw has been sitting now, because that chain brake broke, for about a year and a half with it was ethanol gas in it. So it was a mix using 80, what is it that we have here in Colorado? 85 ethanol mix, right? But it wasn't much. So I'm trying to get it to crank right here. And it's struggling a little bit. I mean, it's a little harder with the bar not being on there because there's not the added weight to keep it stable. But I could tell it just wasn't turning over. So here I'm opening the cap. I'm going to smell what this smells like. And I can tell it's a little bit, as soon as I open it, it's a little varnishy smelling. I was running through so much fuel every week that running non-ethanol was not worth it price-wise to me. But I should have emptied this saw out, and I did not. But I have some bought, pre-mixed fuel from, I think, Home Depot. I don't even know what brand it is, that I'm looking for at the moment. In this video, I will find it. I'm going to come back and put the fuel in it, and we'll try to get it started from there. So the parts that I'm going to take off the new saw for this old saw are the clutch cover, clearly. They forgot to put the dog back on my saw when it was shipped to me. So I've been running it without a dog, which actually led to me bending the handle, I'm pretty sure. So the handle is bent, and I'm pretty sure that's one of the big reasons why, is the constant pressure trying to get it to bite to go through. So I am going to swap that handle over as well, the dog, and also I'm going to probably swap the plastics. So I'm trying to get it to go. I have the choke pulled out. There it is. It's running. And that saw, oh no, there we go. That bumped over, and there it is running. And that saw runs really strong. It's really loud though. It is super, super loud. And as you can tell, all the plastics rattle on it. Everything rattles on that saw. It does have some shock dampening and anti-vibration in the handle, but it is not super great quality, to be fair. I don't care. I kind of like it when I can feel the saw a little bit more. I know that it's not as good for your hands and your muscles and tendons and things. Personally, though, I like it. I like to be able to feel my saw a little bit more. So that's all running. I got the dog on there, as you can tell. Now I'm going to go get the bar. I'm running a 20-inch Sugihara light bar. I've gone over this in videos in the past. Sugihara bars are not the lightest bar on, available. You can definitely find some bars that are lighter weight than the Sugihara. However, they're super affordable. You can get them through Amazon and a bunch of other sites. And they come in all the common sizes as a general rule. And on top of that, I like them over the steel light bars because I've been to a number of steel light bars. I've only run a Husqvarna light bar a few times, but they tend to, the factory light bars tend to be super light, but tend to bend a little easier in my opinion. The Sugihara is like this really nice medium ground between dropping off excess weight, but also being very durable. I've never been to Sugihara bar, and I have them on a bunch of my saws. I'm just showing that that's the chain that I was running, which, if I'm not mistaken, is an 05038 72 link is what I'm running. This is a 20-inch bar. This is a skip tooth chain. Currently, it is just, standard what is that? 21 degrees, is that right? Something like that. But I will square cut that chain at the factory angle. I usually keep my chains the factory angle. I could go flat 0 degree for a ripping chain if I wanted. But since I use it for cross cut and ripping, I usually go square cut, which I have a bunch of square files, which are called double bit flat files, if I remember correctly. Those files are expensive, but I find that square cut chain, especially this skip tooth, tends to the sharpness lasts way longer. And I can do both slabbing cuts or noodling, whatever you want to call it, ripping cuts, and I can do cross cut stuff. So, yeah, I like that. Now, one thing I will tell you that's kind of weird about this particular saw, and it took me a while to remember this right there, you have to have the chain brake in neutral position or non-chain brake on position for the clutch cover to go on the saw. So I had to pull it back and take it off of chain brake position to get it to mount. And also the adjustment for the bar tensioner and chain tensioner is on the front of the clutch cover. You'll see me messing with that here in a minute right there. It's like parallel to the screw is parallel to the bar. That's super annoying, especially with a scrunch. It's really hard to do. I'm pretty sure here in a few minutes I go and grab a screwdriver because it's just that annoying. But it works. And also, the chain tensioner is in the clutch cover. It's not on the body of the saw. That's kind of annoying to me. I know it's super common with the Husqvarnas. I prefer the slider and the tensioner to be on the body, not on the clutch cover. It just seems to, in my opinion, make it easier to mount the bar and work better. That's my 2 cents on it. But that might just be because I'm more familiar with Stihl than I am Husky anyway. I'm not a fanboy of Stihl. It was just for a long time. that's what my dad had. And then here locally, for a long time, nobody dealt with steel. I mean, nobody dealt with Husky. The only Husky dealer that had been here left, and there was no service or whatever. So everything was steel, and if you wanted to have warranty on your saws, you better own a steel, or you had to travel to get it worked on, which wasn't convenient. Now, ironically enough, there's no steel service companies that I know of in town. There is a company here that you can take your steel to if you buy it from them or somebody else. They will ship it off, like they have a courier that comes every day. They'll ship it off to a town that's like an hour and a half away, where their other branch is, where they have small engine mechanics and steel certified mechanics, do work on it there and then ship it back to you. But nobody in town currently does warranty work on steel. So a lot of people have swapped over to Husky saws. And of course, a large number have swapped over to the Husky battery saws, which, to be fair, I still think are a better battery saw than the steel battery saws, even though the steel top handle battery saw has definitely become a more viable and a better product than their original one was, the newer one. I think it's the 220A or something like that. I don't remember. But that one is better than it used to be. So there we go. I have the Sugihara bar on there, the brand new G5800 clutch cover. First pull in this saw, once it's warmed up, once you have good fresh fuel in the system and it's not trying to get through that varnish, it runs, it cranks, it does great. Bending that handle a little bit there. But yeah, I really do like that saw. It's still running, as you can tell from the plastics. So here I'm going to do a little demonstration cutting with it. Once again, brand new chain, just got it from the shop. 20-inch 5/8 chain. I'm sorry, 3/8 050 72 link. Skip tooth, just, factory grind on a skip tooth. And this ash is semi-green. The ash was mainly dead when I cut the tree down 3 years ago. So it's been sitting for at least almost 3 years. But that saw just cuts right through it. And so now I'm going to cut a couple more pieces out of that. And then I'm going to slab it up. Now, this is in real time, and you can see me walking around, whatever. This saw cut these 3 pieces. I messed around with flipping that wood over, which only took a couple of seconds, as you can tell. And then I will come back and block out one of these, cut off the quarter rounds on the cants on one of these pieces, all under 5 minutes, which is pretty good. And it just cuts through this ash. This is green ash or velvet ash. So it's really dense, really hard wood that's difficult to work with. It dulls your chain really bad, and it can make it a super challenge to get that to cut. But as you can see, it's cutting through this really easily. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way that this saw runs. And here we go, cutting, this, of course, because I'm cutting from the end grain down and I'm across the end grain all the way down, it makes it look like your chain is kind of dull because it's just super small, super tiny little pieces of chip coming out. But I turn it over here on its side here in a second, and you'll see the noodles, long strings of fiber coming out. So I want that to roll over on its side so I can cut that quarter off, that round, so I can make it flat. That way it'll lay on its side better. Now I can roll it over. I do have to say though, this saw, when you buy it online, comes and it says it has like 110 decibels. So of course you should definitely be wearing ear protection. You can see those noodles coming out of that now because of the way that I'm cutting versus going down from the end grain. I'm running long ways along the fiber of the trunk. And there's tension in there that had closed up at that top where I had already cut through in the kerf. So when you're slabbing ash, it has a lot of tension in it that will pinch your bar. So you have to keep that in mind. But yeah, like this saw with the fact that it's built is extremely loud. So I always make sure I wear ear protection with this saw for sure. Even the one from when you buy it out of the box is not quiet. It's over 98 decibels. But this one, I don't know what this one's at. Maybe 130, 120 something. It's loud. And it does run way hotter, this one that I own, because of the fact that it is built. It does run considerably hotter than the stock ones do. I've not run the G5800 stock very much, to be honest. I don't have a lot of familiarity with that saw in its stock form. I do know that the one that I bought cranked right up out of the box. I threw a little bit of fuel in it. When you get the saws from Farmer Tech or Holsforma or whatever, or the Jon Cutter like this, and they send them to you, if you open up the tank, you'll smell there's vapor of fuel, because they actually run them before they send them to you to make sure it runs. And I've never had one. I have a Holsforma 080, I think is what they call that one. It's basically the knockoff version of the 088. Maybe that's what it is, a G88 or something like that. I have that saw, which runs and has run and tunes just fine. And then I have the Jon Cutters, and even the newest Jon Cutter that I bought seems to work. It came straight out of the box and cranked right up. So that's, perfect. Now, as you can see here, that's that baffle that I was talking about. It's like a muffler cover that forces all the exhaust out of that main port toward that handle. So I'm using the Dremel here, and I'm cutting that off. One thing to keep in mind, though, is if you're cutting big wood or very dead dry wood and you have all these exhaust ports facing forward like they are on the saw, you can catch stuff on fire, and I have. So keep that in mind with the exhaust ports. The stock one doesn't have this main port opened up that's covered by this baffle. The stock one just has 2 or 3 upper ports that are smaller, open. And this one, he drilled another port and put that baffle trying to direct it sideways, but it's melting my clutch cover. So that's why I'm cutting this off. And he just used like one of those little universal, looks like pretty much the same exhaust port cover that you would get from, I think Amazon sells them. I know West Coast Saws sells that kind of port cover or exhaust manifold cover. Probably would have been better if it had been turned 180 degrees and faced out away from the saw, the chain guard. I'm sure he didn't want to redirect it that way, though, because sometimes you do lay down the saw like it is to cut like the face out of a trunk or something that you're trying to fell. and then it would be blowing hot exhaust right toward your face. But I think honestly, not having that exhaust baffle on there is best, just because the exhaust goes straight forward now, and yeah, it's going to be laying on the wood or whatever, but I think most of the time you're not going to be, you won't have the saw that close long enough to make an issue, if that makes any sense. It will at times get caught or whatever, but I don't think that it'll become an issue that will melt or damage anything or catch the tree on fire. So that is off. And there we go. Gonna try and get this saw out later this week and cut up a bunch of firewood and block up a bunch of stuff for furniture. I'm making these like sculpted furniture pieces that I'll show you guys in a video at some point as well. So there you go, and hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you guys found this video entertaining, had some information that might be beneficial for you guys in it. The G5800 saw, they seem to run pretty well. Are they a great saw? I don't think they're an awesome saw stock. They can be turned into a pretty significant saw if you have it built. They're super affordable, so you can have the saw, bought and built, I think, for right around $1,000 or just under. And yeah, I think it's worth it if you want to send it off to Buxton Work Saws. Last I heard, he was still working on them, so give that a go, and we'll go from there. So thanks, and I will talk to you in the next one.